Hello, and welcome back to the Crime Reel. For today's true crime narration, we shall be looking at the life of the Pan family from Canada. In 1979, Han Pan moved from Vietnam to Canada as a political refugee. Here he met another Vietnamese refugee by the name of Bic Ha. The couple fell in love and later married, then set up home in Scarborough, north of Toronto. Their first child, a daughter who they named Jennifer, was born on the 17th of June 1986, and 3 years later they welcomed a son who they named Felix. Both Han and Bic worked hard in order to provide for their family. Han worked as a tool and die maker, while Bic worked in a factory making car parts. The couple lived a particularly frugal lifestyle, saving hard so that they were in a position to move to a nicer area and buy their own home. Han and Bic had extremely high expectations and ambitions for their two children. Jennifer and Felix were both pushed to achieve greatness, both academically and in their extracurricular pursuits. By 1990, at the age of 4, Jennifer was regularly taking piano lessons. This was soon followed by figure skating lessons, where she would train almost daily. However, her hopes and dreams of professionally competing were dashed when she sustained ligament damage to her knee. By 2004, Han and Bic's hard work and prudence had paid off. They had bought their own home in Markham, near Toronto, both drove luxury cars, and had accumulated around 200,000 Canadian dollars of savings. Jennifer attended the Mary Ward Catholic Secondary School and in her junior years obtained excellent grades, much to the satisfaction of her parents. Felix also excelled academically. However, when Jennifer reached her mid-teens, her grades started to drop to what was seen as more average academic achievement. The only subject where she continued to excel was music. Terrified of how her parents would react, Jennifer started to forge her report cards so that her parents would continue to believe that she was a straight A student. During her senior year of high school, Jennifer secured a place at Ryerson University in Toronto. However, after failing calculus in her final year, this offer was rescinded. Desperate to hide this failure from both her parents and those around her, Jennifer pretended to everyone that she was in fact attending the university. She would leave her home each morning, spending her days either teaching piano or working in a local restaurant. Jennifer even went so far as to buy second-hand textbooks as well as researching the subjects which she was meant to be studying. This was in order to convince her parents that she was continuing to excel academically. Bic and Han maintained their strict rules for their now adult daughter. She was not allowed to date, attend parties, or drink alcohol. All of her social interactions were monitored extremely closely and controlled by her parents. Keeping up the pretense of studying, Jennifer informed her parents that she had received a scholarship to study pharmacology at the University of Toronto. As this course supposedly increased her workload, she managed to convince her parents to allow her to stay away from home with a friend near the university during the week. In reality, Jennifer had secretly been dating a man by the name of Daniel Wong. She had met Daniel when they both attended the Mary Ward Secondary School. However, after Daniel had problems with his academic achievements, he had moved to a different school. He then started working at a pizza restaurant, but was also known to be a marijuana dealer. In order to escape her parents' control still further, Jennifer told them that she had also begun volunteering at the hospital for sick children in Toronto. Whilst her parents believed this story for a while, they soon became suspicious that Jennifer did not have a hospital uniform or ID badge. Acting on these suspicions, Bic followed Jennifer to work one day and discovered her daughter's lies. The full extent of Jennifer's deception came to light. She had not finished high school, had never been to university, and was living with her boyfriend during the week. Her parents were furious. Han wanted to immediately throw Jennifer out of the house, but Bick convinced him to let her stay. However, staying at the family home came with many conditions. Jennifer had to finish high school. She was forbidden from going anywhere other than to and from her job teaching piano, and she was to have no contact whatsoever with Daniel. Whilst appearing to obey her parents' rules, Jennifer continued her relationship with Daniel in secret. Daniel eventually grew tired of this deception, and being unable to pursue a normal adult relationship with Jennifer, he ended their romance and soon became involved with another woman. Jennifer was devastated that their 7-year relationship had ended and was desperate to win Daniel back. She managed to convince Daniel that his new girlfriend was threatening her. Jennifer even claimed that Daniel's new girlfriend had sent her a bullet in the post. By 2010, Jennifer and Daniel had resumed their relationship. Meanwhile, Jennifer's younger brother Felix was attending McMaster University. He had moved away from the family home after gaining a place at the university to study engineering. On the evening of 8th of November 2010, Jennifer was upstairs in her bedroom when she heard loud voices downstairs in her house at 238 Helen Avenue, Markham. 3 men had broken in and were holding her parents at gunpoint. 2 of the men ran upstairs and grabbed Jennifer, demanding that she show them where her parents kept their money. After ransacking the master bedroom, they tied Jennifer to the upstairs banisters before returning back downstairs to deal with her parents. The men then took Bick and Han to the basement of their house, told them to put blankets over their heads, and shot them both multiple times at close range. The men then fled the scene. Shortly afterwards, Jennifer managed to contort herself in her restrained position and retrieved her phone from her back pocket, and she alerted the police. The police soon arrived, where they found Jennifer still tied to the banisters and Bick dead in the basement. Despite being shot in the head, Han was still alive and was rushed to nearby Markham Stouffville Hospital before being transferred by aircraft to the trauma unit at the Sunnybrook Hospital in Toronto, where he was put into an induced coma. In order to gain as much information about the attacks as possible, Jennifer was interviewed by police in the early hours of the following morning. She told them how the intruders had become frustrated with her parents' lack of cooperation and the ability to give them cash, so they took them to the basement and shot them. She had been spared as she had fully cooperated with the intruders. Felix immediately returned from university and was also interviewed. Later that day, it was determined that, against all odds, Han would most likely survive his injuries. Jennifer went to stay nearby with her aunt, uncle and cousin, and with her father incapacitated, Jennifer started to organise her mother's funeral. The police completed further interviews with Jennifer, and as they did so became increasingly suspicious of her version of events on the night of the robbery. It seemed unrealistic to the police that both of Jennifer's parents had been executed, and yet the murderers left a witness to the attacks. Jennifer's mood kept fluctuating, and more small inconsistencies in her story started to appear. When the house was searched, the police found that little had been taken, with purses and wallets left untouched. 4 days after the shooting, on the 12th of November, Han came out of the medically induced coma and was soon interviewed by the police. He informed them that during the time that he had been held at gunpoint, he had heard Jennifer moving around the house freely, and that she had been talking to the intruders in hushed, almost friendly tones. By November the 14th, Jennifer was made the prime suspect in the attack on her parents. The following day, Bick's funeral took place at the Ogden Chapel in Scarborough. Han was unable to attend due to the extent of his injuries. The police were present and noted that Jennifer seemed to be paying more attention to them than the service, and was also continuously rubbing her eyes despite never crying. Jennifer was interviewed again on 22nd of November 2010. During this lengthy interview, various legal techniques were used where Jennifer was told of fictitious evidence that the police had against her, forensics, computer analysis of lies, and satellite tracking systems in an attempt to gain a confession. With Jennifer's story full of inconsistencies, she eventually admitted that she had hired the men for a sum of 10,000 Canadian dollars, but stated that this was because she wanted them to kill her and not her parents. She had had a failed suicide attempt in the past and wanted someone to end her life for her. The police did not believe her version of events and she was charged with murder. The investigation continued and police were able to put together a timeline of events leading up to the attack. Early in 2010, Jennifer had decided that she had finally had enough of her controlling parents. Together with Daniel, she came up with a plan which she believed would solve the problem for her. After realising that she stood to inherit about 500,000 Canadian dollars in the event of her parents' deaths, Jennifer and Daniel decided to hire a professional hitman to kill her parents. They then planned to use the inherited money to move in together and supposedly live out their happy ever after. Daniel made contact with a man by the name of Lenford Roy Crawford and gave Jennifer a different mobile phone so that she could make arrangements with Lenford anonymously. From there, Lenford contacted Eric Sean Carty, who in turn contacted David Melvaganam to put in place the steps necessary to commit the murders. On the evening of the 8th of November 2010, Jennifer quietly unlocked the front door of the family's home in Markham before going up to her bedroom. She then contacted David on her second mobile phone to let him know that the house was unlocked. Not long after, a car arrived driven by Eric Carty. David and two other unknown men got out of the car and entered through the unlocked front door. They then proceeded to ransack the master bedroom and kill Jennifer's parents. By April 2011, the police were in a position to arrest the others involved. David was arrested on the 14th of April, and the following day Eric was arrested at the prison where he was being held for a separate crime. Daniel, Jennifer's boyfriend, along with Lenford, neither of whom had been present during the murders but had been instrumental in arranging them, were arrested on the 26th of April and the 4th of May respectively. It took another 3 years for the case to go to trial. It began on 19th of March 2014 in Newmarket, Ontario. All 5 of the defendants pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder, attempted murder, and conspiracy to commit murder. Jennifer's defence changed from the details that she had given during her police interviews. She now claimed that she had hired the men to kill her father because of his excessively controlling behaviour. She blamed the years of extreme parental pressure for her having a mental breakdown and arranging the killing. However, soon after she realised that she had done the wrong thing and tried desperately to cancel the hit. Told that she would need to pay a cancellation fee of 8,500 Canadian dollars, she desperately tried to find this money. When she was unable to do so, the men refused to cancel their plan. Jennifer continuously maintained that her mother was never meant to be harmed. This version of events was countered by the prosecution, who questioned why, if this were true, she had waited 3.5 years to tell anyone, as it could have ultimately helped to find those responsible for her mother's death. 6 months into the trial, in September 2014, Eric's lawyer fell ill, and because it was impossible to replace the lawyer at short notice, his case was declared a mistrial. The case of the remaining 4 defendants continued. After 4 days of jury deliberations, on December 13th, 2014, Jennifer, Daniel, David and Lenford were all found guilty of murder. On the 23rd of January 2015, they all received sentences of life in prison with a non-parole period of 25 years. On the 7th of December 2015, rather than going through a new trial, Eric agreed a deal for his part in the crime. He was sentenced to 18 years in prison with a non-parole period of 9 years. This sentence would run alongside a 25-year sentence that he was already completing for a different murder conviction. Jennifer, Daniel, David and Lenford remain in prison to this day. It is believed that Jennifer, Daniel and Lenford still maintain their innocence and are all hoping to appeal their convictions. Eric died on the 26th of April 2018 while still in prison. At the request of Han and his son Felix, the court issued an order to prevent Jennifer from contacting any surviving members of the family. Han's physical injuries have left him unable to work, and the mental pain inflicted upon both Han and Felix by Jennifer's actions has had a profound effect on both of their lives. To this day, it is unknown who actually pulled the trigger, and the identity of the two other men who had entered the house that night has never been confirmed. That concludes the story of the Pan family. Thanks very much for listening to that case. Please add any comments down below. Today's suspects in petty crime are Casey, who is 15 years old this year, and Remy Gedrose has owned him since she was 15. She says he is a really sweet dog. Thanks for the picture, Remy. And the next suspect is Lucy Boo. Ali Slade sent in a picture of Lucy Boo, her pet chihuahua. Oh my goodness, Lucy Boo, welcome to Petty Crime as well. Thanks Ali for sending the photos in. Thanks very much for listening to the Crime Reel. Stay safe. Goodbye. Psst. Okay, this one has a short deadline. Today it's the FA Cup final. It's Arsenal versus Chelsea. Who do you think's going to win? Put your predictions on. Any guesses after the game's finished could be a little bit questionable. Goodbye.